Hello, MCU fans. Today we're going to take a look at the question of how does the Kang from Quantumania fit into all this Loki stuff? In particular, how does the Quantum Realm work in relation? A good question somebody asked, for example, is we know that Janet comes from 616, the main MCU, into the Quantum Realm, and then she encounters a Kang. Does that mean that Kang has to be from 616 universe? I mean, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but does he have to be? Or does the question really come down to how does the quantum realm work in relation to the rest of the multiverse? It's a great question. I think I read and respond to every question people leave on the videos. I love it. It's so helpful in coming up with new ideas for things to discuss. So there will obviously be spoilers for Quantumania as well as every episode of Loki that's been out so far, up to episode number 4. But as long as that's okay, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Now, don't forget, we are running a contest through the month of October. In fact, this is the last day to enter. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment. 5 random winners will be announced on a video in early November and can choose from one of these books or steelbooks. Best of luck. Okay, so what do we know about the quantum realm? Well, Janet tells us it's a place outside time and space. And if you think about that for a minute, how on earth would that work, right? It's outside of time and it's outside of space. So that pretty much is setting up that this thing is pretty funky, right? It's going to have some funky rules, and we're going to see just how funky they are. She also says it's a secret universe beneath ours. So one pet peeve I've got is they call it the quantum realm, and then she calls it a universe. I just wish they would not keep using these same words over and over again interchangeably. It is very difficult to follow sometimes. But nonetheless, I think the most important thing she's saying is it's beneath ours. What does she mean by that? It's beneath ours. Well, Jeff Loveness, who wrote Quantumania, gives us even more information. He says the quantum realm is the basement of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's multiverse. That's really important. So he's seemingly saying there is one quantum realm for the entire multiverse. Okay, no problem. I can accept that. In fact, that kind of answers our earlier question then. It implies that Janet can come from 616, but the Kang that was exiled could have come from a different universe because there's only one quantum realm for the multiverse. Now, the natural question that gets asked after hearing something like Loveness' statement is, how did this work? How did the What If episode where Janet goes into the quantum realm and contracts the zombie virus work? Because if there's only one quantum realm, did it branch, when the what if event happened and 2 different things happened? Is that what happened? I mean, supposedly it's from 2 different universes. So how does this work? Well, we have to keep in mind that the quantum realm is outside of time and space. So therefore, it is just going to be weird, in particular relating to space. If you're outside of space, that probably means you're so vast, it's so immense that you could have 2 different variants entering the quantum realm and getting 2 different experiences. Janet from 616 walks out just fine. Janet from the What If episode contracts the zombie virus. Another possibility, I guess, is that maybe variants are out of phase with each other somehow because of the space working so weird in the quantum realm. Either way, we know this happened. We know there's only one. And so, beyond that, I don't know if Marvel will ever explain it, and it becomes headcanon from there. But I just wanted to bring this up because this is a great question in relation to one quantum realm for the entire multiverse. Now, I mentioned it's funky in relation to being outside of space. Well, it's also kind of funky in relation to time. So let's look at all the different ways we've seen time working in the quantum realm. Janet goes into the quantum realm and is gone for 30 years in the MCU, but also she experienced 30 years inside the quantum realm. She was down there for 30 years. So basically from 1987 to 2018. Okay, that's fine. So for her, time in the quantum realm was the same as time in the MCU. It's also worth noting that Janet appears to have met Kang around 21 to 22 years into her time in the quantum realm because Peyton Reed, who directed Quantumania, says that we designed the idea that somewhere, say 21, 22 years into Janet's 30 years down there, she'd given up hope, right? And then, of course, he goes on to say she met Kang. So that's just kind of helpful from a timeline standpoint, and we'll discuss that again a little later. All right, so Janet's time was the same in the MCU as in the quantum realm. Scott, as you remember from Endgame, had a very different experience, right? He was down there for 5 hours for him, but it was 5 years in the MCU. So That could have been he fell into a time vortex, right? Because they talked about time vortexes in Ant-Man and the Wasp, so it would only make sense that's probably what happened to him, and he was stuck in a vortex, just didn't know it, but only experienced 5 hours. On the flip side, we know the quantum realm has time dilations, because in Quantumania, Hank says apparently the ants passed through some sort of time dilation and lived thousands of years in a single day. Okay, wild. So we've had people experience time in the same way that they experienced it in the MCU. We've had them have it take less time in the quantum realm, and we've had it take thousands of years longer. They experienced even more time than others. So basically, the ants came in as well as Hank, and yet Hank experiences, what, a day maybe, and the ants 1,000 years. So time is funky. In fact, let's face it, time is just unpredictable in the quantum realm. Scott says it himself. I mean, I don't even know how time works down here. Have we been gone for 10 seconds, or have we been gone for 10 years? So just real important to realize space is weird and time is weird. The quantum realm is weird. Okay, it's also worth mentioning, because this will come up, this whole idea of this variant of myself. This is kind of weird. So when He Who Remains, in first season, episode 6, was giving his narration, he says, eons ago, before the TVA, a variant of myself lived on Earth in the 31st century. He was a scientist and discovered that there were universes stacked on top of his own. So He Who Remains is not the one that discovered the other universes. But it's also important to note those are each different universes, because that's what he said, right? But this does open the door, I guess, that He Who Remains doesn't have to be from the 31st century. He said his variant is. He could, I guess, be the Victor Timely we saw in the 19th century. That's just interesting to think about. I will find out, obviously, in the next 2 episodes. But yeah, it's very, very interesting wording he used there. But he also said that first variant, so he's referring to the other variant again, encountered a creature who that was created from the terrors in reality, capable of consuming time and space itself. I harnessed the beast's power and began experimenting on it. I weaponized Goliath. I ended the multiverse of war. So he's stressing he didn't find Goliath, but he's the one that tamed Goliath, harnessed Goliath's powers, and weaponized him. So that's interesting. Keep those things in mind. Then there's a question of what can Kang's ship do? Well, it's a ship that can travel the multiverse. So that's fascinating. We learned that America Chavez can jump between universes, but she can do it like on her own. It's like it's an inherent ability she has. Kang needs a ship to do it. So she can still do the impossible, because she can do something that no one else can do on their own. However, it appears that Kang has found technology that lets him jump across the multiverse. And then I think this is hilarious, because as soon as Janet says that, Hank says, the multiverse? As in alternate dimensions? Parallel realities? And then Janet says, yes, he was destroying entire worlds, entire timelines. So if you had your bingo card out, you won, right? Because in just 30 seconds, they said multiverse, dimensions, realities, worlds, and timelines. Oy vey. Please stop. Please start using these words consistently. It's so difficult to track this stuff. Anyway, enough said. Well, they'll get it figured out. But also, speaking of Kang's abilities, Kang says this is a multiversal engine core, or at least it was, a power source that can take you anywhere in space and time. So I really do think we're going to see that Kang has the ability to jump forward and backwards in time, jump across to different universes, and maybe even do it without creating branches. Very interesting. All right, so who exiled Kang? Well, Janet says he was exiled here, outside space and time, which we've seen that, the only place that could hold him. So that's fascinating. The quantum realm was literally the only place that could hold him. Also then, when Cassie asked what's coming, he says, me, a lot of me. They exiled me down here. They're afraid of me. Notice he's talking about them in present tense, like they're still there. Not eventually they'll all come back, but like they're still there. Keep that in mind, because that's important. All right, so then what happened to him? Well, I've long said I don't think he died. I mean, that doesn't look good, right? But I kind of think he's going to turn into the MCU's version of the Beyonder. And no, I don't think he'll turn into a Caucasian man with dark hair. I'm just showing this because that is the Beyonder that people can remember that read the comics in the 80s. but when the original Secret Wars comic came out. But then I think it's going to be more like the 2015 version of Secret Wars with Battle World, and maybe the Beyonder takes over God Emperor Doom's role. We'll have to see. But anyway, I do think that Kang from the Quantum Realm will be returning. We'll find out. Okay, so I want to do a visual picture. I want to keep expanding on this model that I've been showing because I think this really fits in perfectly how the Kang from Quantumania, relates to everything else. So over on the left, 5 different universes is all I'm covering at this point. 3 different ones for the main 3 Kangs. They're all meeting together, but they came from different universes, I think. Not branches, but actual universes. And He Who Remains, of course, with the Sacred Timeline. And then there's Kang from Quantumania. And I'm putting 31st century, but again, I'm open to the fact that He Who Remains might have been, fooling us there. And then on the bottom, in the red box, is the Quantum Realm, because, red box, why not? And there's only one for the multiverse. That's why there's only one. Okay, so we know that universes can branch timelines, so I'm just showing it with one of them so we don't make this so hard to see. But we also know that someone at least, one of these guys, found Eliath. I think it's probably the Kang from Quantumania. That really seems right up his alley, that he would want to find something that violent. But it's He Who Remains, ultimately, that weaponized it, not that Kang. So I don't know what he did to tick everybody off, but they jettisoned him into the Quantum Realm. And they might have even destroyed his universe. I'm getting rid of it to give me some space. But knowing these guys, they probably got rid of him and then destroyed his whole universe. So I'm going to put a little poof mark. And of course, he's gone now, and we'll get rid of the line because it's very, it's outside of time and space. So it acts weird. So just trust me, we'll come back to that. But this is during the first multiversal war. Then, as a result of that multiversal war, He Who Remains, I believe, isolated himself from the sacred timeline with the Loom. He didn't kill everybody. He left them around, and that's going to be really important to some lines coming up here in a second. But the Loom was used to basically hide. He hid from the rest of the multiverse. And of course, he's using Eliath. We don't know where exactly Eliath is located, but I'm keeping him down there because I need room. But theoretically, Eliath is obviously part of the sacred timeline. So, that's important. He did not kill the other Kangs. He just isolated himself. Okay, so then he set up the TVA, and then I'm going to move Kang out also, or He Who Remains out, because he's hanging with Eliath wherever they're at. All right, so we have the sacred timeline, and we have the TVA doing their job. Now we can go back to some of the things in the sacred timeline. In 1987, Janet heads into the Quantum Realm, of course. She's there until about 2008, when lo and behold, the poof is when Kang arrives. Why did he arrive in what is effectively 2008 for Janet? We don't know. That's just the way the Quantum Realm works. Why did they encounter each other and he didn't encounter the Marvel Zombies version of Janet? It's just the way it worked. I think if we look for deep explanations of how the Quantum Realm is actually functioning, we're going to be disappointed. We just have to accept that's what happened. That's when he showed up. All right, so they're together for a while. Of course, she discovers that he's really bad and wants to kill everybody if he gets out. So she sabotages his machine, and she gets out in 2018. Of course, he continues on. He's still there, and we'll return to him in a little bit. Okay, then we have the Endgame time heist happening. They went to multiple times. I realized, 2012, 2013, 2014, ultimately 1970. I'm just going to put 2012 because that's the only one that really matters for this illustration. So some things happen. Everything goes crazy. It doesn't work real well. But one of the things that happen is an extra branch upon the branch is created. And in that branch, Loki gets away. Well, gets away temporarily because, of course, the TVA grabs him and brings him to the TVA, and then they prune that branch. So the branch off the branch has now been pruned. It's gone. Then Steve Rogers ultimately returns all the stones. Man, I want a special presentation that shows how this works. Please, please, Marvel, please. But anyway, we know that returning the stones clips those branches created during the time heist, and it's all nice and tidy and cleaned up. Okay, meanwhile, you've got Loki hanging out with the TVA. Ultimately, he finds Sylvie. They both end up in the void. They enchant Eliath and make him disperse. Then they head into He Who Remains. She kicks out Loki. She kills He Who Remains. We start getting the craziness outside the window. She realizes maybe that wasn't the best idea. Maybe it was. And she heads off to the branch in McDonald's. And then Loki season 2 happens, because I believe they're back to back. So the TVA now has gone nuts because they're not branching, or they're not pruning branches anymore. And and this is where we're at right now in Loki season 2. But I do think the end result will be that they will shut down the loom. I don't think they're going to fix it, and I don't think it's going to keep exploding. I think it's going to be shut down because they have no option left. In a way, if you think about it, how can it stop? Or sorry, how can it weave together infinite branches? It's just too much. That's my guess. I strongly think it's just going to be shut down, because that's what's going to expose 616 to the rest of the multiverse, including those big Kangs. So I'm going to move the Citadel at the end of time now up to be aligned with the sacred timeline. Like I say, we don't know where it is, but we'll put it there for now. Okay, so then we jump to 2026, which, if you see my timeline videos, that's when I think Quantumania is happening. But regardless of when you think it's happening, most importantly is Janet heads back, well, they all head in to the quantum realm. They get sucked in by MODOK. Obviously, they have the fight with Kang, etc. Kang seemingly dies, although, like I said, I think he's coming back. I don't think he's dead. And then they all get out. So, yay, that all worked, right? But because of all of this, these guys turn and notice, okay, we have a problem. We have a real problem here. They've touched the multiverse, and we have to do something about it. And of course, they call the Kang Council. So that's how I think chronologically this all works. But I think what's really important is the reason I firmly believe that those 3 Kangs, in fact, tons more Kangs, have been out there the whole time are some of the lines they say in this post-credit scene. This is so important. They say, so, the exiled one is dead. That's important. They know who the exiled one is. Now, by the way, I did a video on that. I think they're referring to He Who Remains, because he self-exiled himself by shutting himself into the loom and protecting himself. I mean, I guess they could be referring to the Kang from Quantumania, but really they don't even care about that dude, and they probably don't even know he died, because they're not even paying attention to the quantum realm. So I think it was a bit of a sneaky misdirect that they used the word exiled in the movie and then they use it here. I think they're looking at He Who Remains and like, oh my goodness, the dude's dead. And he's like, are you sure he's dead? If it wasn't true, I wouldn't call you. Must really eat you up that you're not the one who killed him. Now stop and think about that for a second. If He Who Remains wiped out the entire multiverse when he won the multiversal war, and then as a result of shutting off the loom, that created all these Kangs from scratch, then how did they know who the exiled one was? Why do they even care about him? Why are they saying, I bet it eats you up, you're not the one that killed him? They have a memory. They have a memory of all this. The only way that they can have a memory of this stuff is if they've always been around and they've been ticked off that they couldn't get into the loom, that, because they didn't even understand the loom conceptually. I don't know that any of us do, but nonetheless, it is protecting the sacred timeline. That much we know. So they were ticked off that he ran away and hid. So then Immortus comes in and says, none of us killed him. They did. They're beginning to touch the multiverse. And if we let them, they will take everything we've built. So, one last time looking at this diagram, that is why I think the 3 Kangs, as well as the Kang Council, have always been around. They weren't wiped out. They weren't recreated at the end of Loki Season 2, because otherwise they wouldn't know who the exiled one was. They wouldn't care. They wouldn't have wanted him dead. They wouldn't have been mad that they didn't get to kill him, etc., etc., etc. I just think this all fits perfectly. So, let me know what you think. I just keep adding these facts from different places all in together into what I think is the multiversal model, but I totally admit that this is just a theory, and if it's not right, it's not right. Tell me. I don't mind continuing to change it as new facts come about. Okay, so don't forget, we do have the October contest. Be a subscriber and leave a comment, and you may get a chance to win one of the books or the Steel books. And of course, we have the Discord server. Love to have you join us. One of the channels is theories. So many crazy theories out there. It's great. All theories are welcome. Sure, I may respond a couple of times and say, I don't agree with that theory, but still, I'll also say, love the theory though. Good job. So come on out, share your theories. We want to hear everything you have to say. I will leave a pinned comment with an invite to the server. And also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.